All right, everybody. Hello and welcome to today's lecture. Doesn't that make it sound terrible? Like lecture, like it's going to be boring. I promise you it won't be boring. Today's topic is setting defaults in PowerPoint. And I'm Monica Wahi, your data science host. And I'm so happy to see people in the chat, especially you, Joe. Hi. Maybe you got away from your engineering duties for a moment so you could engage in defaults in PowerPoint, right? Because I wanted to hold these. So I'm a data scientist. I'm going to go a little slow. I always go a little slow at the beginning while people join. But I'm a data scientist who I obviously know like R and SAS and I always talk to Joe in the chat because he's an engineer and he uses different software, but we both do biostatistics. Well, he doesn't maybe biostatistics. He does statistics. I do biostatistics. But one thing that we all sort of converge on is we all kind of get stuck using PowerPoint, right? So most of the time we use PowerPoint for slides, but a lot of times, like what I've been doing for literally years is using it to make diagrams. And I know that sounds really obvious. Like, yeah, I've probably made a diagram. Like you probably made a diagram on the slide before, like you were presenting slides and you made a diagram, right? But think about it, like you got a slide and you make this diagram and then move on to the next slide. Like what if your life is sort of like run by diagrams? Like let's say for example, maps are a great example of when you might have a life run by diagrams, is where if you've got a map that you have to use. So, one of my customers was analyzing data from a wastewater study. So, they collected wastewater from a few different places. And I'm like, where? Where did they collect it from? And she kind of couldn't tell me. She kind of didn't know what was going on. It was like I was trying to help her with her job, and her job was kind of a mess. So I was like, okay, well, let me review the literature. And I like didn't understand anything in the literature. And then all of a sudden I found this great article where they had drawn a picture of sampling wastewater from like a septic tank. And yeah, it kind of looked like an 8-year-old had drawn a picture. Well, a pretty good 8-year-old. But I'm like, thank you, man, for this diagram. So if I was in the same situation as the person writing that wastewater um, uh, article that I liked so much, I'd be making that diagram in PowerPoint. And so I was like realizing, oh my gosh, I use PowerPoint for like so many things, and I must not be the only one. I'll bet there's a lot of people who do that. So if you use PowerPoint, which I assume you do, that you came here, you'll like PowerPoint like wants you to make slides. So if you go and you make a new slide, it even calls them slides. Like it doesn't call them diagrams, it calls them slides. And it's like you make a new one and you get to choose these different formats. They're always like you're going to present a slide, like bullet points and stuff like that. I'm not complaining. I mean, I like those features actually. I make presentations a lot. Whenever I make a presentation, I'm really happy it does that. But that's the only time I'm really happy it does that. Otherwise, I'm fighting with it. Like every time I'm trying to make like a word, some words, it wants to put it in bullet points. Well, how many times on a diagram do you want bullet points? Like once in a while, but not all the time. And so what happens is that if you want to use PowerPoint for making diagrams or just like not making slides, you end up fighting with it like constantly. And so it becomes helpful to know how to actually set the defaults. Like some, going in and setting defaults, do you really have time for that? Well, if you're going to do a big project, you might as well go in and fix some of these things like default fonts. Like nothing's more annoying than resetting the font 80 times, in one project. And so that's why I wanted to hold this today, is I wanted to demonstrate to you that it's actually not that hard to do. But the problem is PowerPoint's such an old program, like it's impossible to figure out what to navigate. And also it's not really clear like what you Google for, like what you're saying when you're doing it. And when I realized this, I was like, well, I'll just explain it. So let's see here. So there's so today in today's lecture, today's demonstration, that probably sounds better. I'm going to show you two like basic approaches to modifying the defaults in PowerPoint. One is the master approach, and one is the design menu approach. And I'll get more into both of those. But before we go on, I have to give a commercial for my free online workshop, which is actually happening next week. And I'm realizing I don't have a lot of people signed up. Now, I would love it if I could get a lot of people signed up for this free workshop because it is more fun with more people. Yes, the workshop is actually fun. I mean, there's parts of it where there's lecture. I don't know if the lecture is so much fun. I mean, it's kind of fun because the topic is application basics, where I'm explaining about computer applications. Well, of course, you already know about them. You know about PowerPoint. But this is from a data science point of view. Like, what if you have to get data from these applications, or you have to deal with all these applications like talking to each other? And it gives you like the lecture part is mostly about terminology. And even the lecture part is kind of fun because I give you a lot of management examples. Like, I tell stories where I explain how the different terminology fits. And then we have challenges. And this is all online on Zoom. And you just go into your breakout group on Zoom and do your challenge. And then that way you can start to learn like how to design application pipelines, which you need to, like, it's helpful to have PowerPoint to make the diagram of the pipeline. But if all of these things are like, wow, that sounds kind of interesting, and maybe you don't know much about it, please sign up for my for the free online workshop. So the workshop takes about, it's totally 6 hours. The October workshop I'm holding is next week. It's Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So each of the sessions is 2 to 3 hours. Each of them starts at noon Eastern time. And I'll give you access to the online course materials. I have a whole applications basics course that we're going off of. That's an online on the course management system, but we're doing it as a workshop. So there's real life challenges. You're going to have to do stuff that's not on the course site. Sometimes people can't come to the workshop because it's during the week and they have to work at this time. So the November, I made the November workshop be a 2-day workshop. And so each of the sessions is a little longer, and it's over a Saturday and a Sunday. So if you can't join next week because Monday, Wednesday, and Friday is not good for your schedule, go ahead and sign up for the November workshop. And then you can learn a lot about my application basics. I'll get you started in making application pipelines. All right. Okay. Enough from that commercial, and back to our regularly scheduled program. All right. So I'm going to just talk a little before I go to do my demonstration. So why would you even modify the defaults in PowerPoint for data visualizations? Okay. And it, like I was saying before I introduced the workshop there on the last slide, that defaults are really set up for slide presentations. So you're going to be fighting with those if you're trying to make a diagram or a data visualization. The next thing is, oh my God, the default color palettes are terrible for visual communication. And I'm not saying, oh, this is an ugly green color or whatever. No, they're bad for visual communication. Like, they'll have they'll literally have palettes called blue-green, and they're just blue and green. Like, how are you going to differentiate stuff if you just have blue and green? Like, that's what I mean. Okay. Also, the fonts are not really good for data visualizations. So I'm going to tell you about the concept of true type fonts. So let's say that, you're like getting a dissertation, or you're writing a dissertation or something, and you have to submit your dissertation to your library because you're graduating with your PhD. They will say, well, it needs to either be Arial or Times New Roman. Probably you've noticed that since you get a lot of PhDs, I'm sure. Just kidding. But, like a lot of times they'll say, it needs to be Arial or it needs to be Times New Roman. And why is that? Especially if you're in like nursing or, psychology, they'll go for Times New Roman. I'm epidemiology. I prefer like the Arial family, the sans serif, as you see on the slide. So that little hooky thing, like you'll notice the slide on the font on the slide is Arial. So it doesn't have these little hooky things, but like Times New Roman has these little, they're called serifs. And sans serif means without it. So I prefer sans serif. Some people prefer serif. But the true type fonts are the small group of fonts that include serif and sans serif that always are going to look good no matter what computer you're on. And I'm meaning Microsoft. I'm meaning PowerPoint, Word, probably Excel. If you use Arial or Times New Roman, and there's a whole bunch of them, right? Like Calibri, I think Tahoma. You can look them up. If you Google True Type fonts, you'll find it. But the reason why you want to use those is you just want it to be really interoperable. You want to be able to have anybody pull up your slide and it doesn't look terrible. So what I would do, I used to work at where I would work in person, like I go and teach this statistics class to nurses at this local college, right? And I noticed if I made my PowerPoint slides at home and I wanted to use some sort of fancy font that wasn't a true type font, if I went and I brought my slides to the college and then fired them up over there, often the font was all over the place. And it was because the college's computer attached to the projector for PowerPoint didn't have that font installed. And so it interpreted a different font. And then, like, if you imagine this Arial, it wouldn't have happened if I used Arial. But if I use if this gets like reinterpreted and it gets reinterpreted as a really fat font like Garamond, then this is going to be off. It's not going to look good. So I'd be there lecturing and the whole thing would be off. These numbers would be off all over the place. It'd be terrible. So I really want you to figure out your favorite true type fonts and try to use them. And I'm very politically invested in Arial. Like if you say, what should I use? I'd be like Arial, Arial, Arial. And the reason is, well, they actually have a family of fonts in Arial, which are sans serif. I'm like, just stay in the family, in the Arial family. And why? Just your life gets easier. There's no serifs. It'll look good on everything. There's some right here. See this heading? That's an Arial black from the Arial family, right? Now, if you're don't like the Arial family, you're like, well, I want to do the Times New Roman family because I'm in nursing or I'm like, okay, fine, you can do that. But try to stick to a true type family, okay? Also, size of text is a consideration. And when you present slides, obviously the size of text is a consideration. But it's a different consideration when you're making a diagram. How big does the text actually need to be? Sometimes you just want text to just indicate that there's a bunch of text here. You don't even care if anybody can read it, right? So it really depends on how the visualization will be displayed. And so it's just different ways of thinking about defaults, okay? All right, so now I'm going to go on. So part of if you want to, I'm going to do a really fast demonstration. You're probably going to be like, okay, I didn't totally catch all that. If that's the case, then you want to take my online course, PowerPoint for Visualizations, because it teaches you this is the main. There are basically all of these videos of me demonstrating exactly how to do all of these things. Okay. And so if you forget what I show you today, well, I'm going to record it and post it. But if you really want to get into it and you want to learn it, you got to take that course, right? So it's basically me teaching you all those things. And then you get a challenge. Basically, if you take that course, you'll recognize something. And what you'll recognize is the example slides I'm showing you now, which are the ones I'm going to do the demonstration on. Those are the ones you do the challenge on. Okay. So, and if you have any questions, I made it so I think everybody's muted, but go ahead. That's what I keep doing, is looking in the chat. Go ahead and put questions in the chat. And when I get a chance, I'll look at it and I'll answer your question. All right. So before I do my demonstration, I'm just going to explain the two main approaches to setting defaults in PowerPoint. And there's other things you can do, but these are the main approaches. One is by editing the master. Okay. So what is the master? I'll show it to you. But the master controls the configurations for the default layouts of slides. So if you start a new slide, you know how you can choose the different layouts. Let's say one of the things is the default layout for slides. they have one where there's like 2 headings and then 2 bullet point lists. And often those are like not on the slide where I want them to be. Like the headings are down too low and I want them up higher. That's the kind of thing you do in the master. But what you can do is actually configure each of those objects. Like I can move that up, but I can make the default font of those objects. I can do a lot more than just rearranging them. Okay, so that's the master approach, and I'll show you that. But then there's another approach called the design menu approach. And if you're like, well, is one better than the other? And the answer is, well, you actually need to use both. It depends on what you're trying to do, but you need to know how to do both because they kind of do different things. So the design menu approach gives you access to other menus where you can set default fonts in a different way, and you can also set default color palettes, and there's probably other stuff, but those are the main things I use. All right. So now, this is just a slide that I made, but it's a slide. If you download these slides, which is a good idea, you'll have the slide because it shows you how to get to the master, where the master is, and you will immediately see when I demonstrate that like sort of goes away from your knowledge, like it disappears, which is why I made this diagram. Okay. And then this is a slide I made that tells you how to get to the design menu. Again, it's buried, right? And if you came to my last event last week, it was also on PowerPoint, and basically I was explaining why this happens. It happened with Microsoft products because Microsoft products have been around for so long. And one of the things that they did is they created a lot of functionality in all these products. And a lot of people don't know where that functionality is. So in the like about 2007, they added this ribbon. This is like this ribbon menu, this big menu. And I don't know why they did. I thought it was a big mistake. Like it's very difficult. The ribbon doesn't really match how we think and how we process information. Like if you study cognitive neuroscience. And so it makes people basically confused. But the problem is they had to keep all the old ways of doing things in PowerPoint. They added the ribbon and then they tried to make things easier. Like you'll notice now, see the search up here? If I remember what it's called, like set default font or whatever, I can find stuff up here, whereas you couldn't in earlier versions. So it's all about like legacy stuff, and now it's just really confusing. So I'm going to demonstrate how you get around that confusion. All right. So let's go to, so these are our example default slides that you'll get as part of that course if you take it. Okay. So first, I'm going to tell you about the master. Okay. So I'm going to just create a slide. So I'm going to go to say new slide. Okay. When I click on that, you'll see all of these choices that I can make. And remember, I was talking about this one. So let's choose this one. Okay. So I can add text in here. La, la, la. I can add text here. Hello. And I can add the first thing, second thing. And there's a lot of things I don't like about it. Like, look at how small this text is. Don't you think it should be centered? Okay. And also, maybe we wish that this was up higher. There's a lot of things maybe we want to change. So let's say if you're just throwing together a slide presentation, you're just going to do it really quick, whatever, then maybe you wouldn't go through all this. But let's say that you're in a university public relations, like PR department, and they say, make some slides, right? Like then you really care. Like you might want to put your school logo on it. Like the university logo, you might want to change the colors and just have some nice standardization to each slide. So if you do that, you're going to want to use the master. So what we're going to do now is go to view. Okay. So I'm going to show you, we were on home and look at this insert drawer. So you want to go and you want to manipulate the master. Where would that be? You would not choose view. Okay, but it's under view, right? So now that we're under view, you're like, okay, why are we even under view? It's because these are slides right now, what we've had. And actually, let me just go over here. Let's look at this master views. We have the slide master, the handout master, and the notes master. Master means like sort of like a base. Okay. So the slide master is sort of the slide basic foundation. The handout master is what if you ever had a slide presentation and you go to print it out and you choose to print it as handouts, like you can choose that, then how that automatically gets formatted is from this master, this handout master. And then this notes master is if you prepare slides for presentation, you can put notes on the bottom. There's like this notes pane. And if you choose to print your slides, the notes, it'll print like the slide at the top and the notes at the bottom, like whatever your notes were. And let's say you want to manipulate how that comes out, then you would go on the notes master. All right. But you're probably wondering, well, what is this other stuff? These presentation views are ones that, so these are more for like preparing to print, actually, to be perfectly honest. And these are more for just viewing them. Like the slide sorter will just show you all the slides at once. Like right now, we have this menu here and we have this main here, but there's different ways of looking at it. Okay. But we actually went to view, but we don't actually care about the presentation views. We care about the master views. And as you probably guessed, we care about the slide master. So now I'm going to click on the master. Now notice before I click on the master, what you see is 3 slides here that I already had and this new slide I'm working on. But when I click on the slide master, everything changes. Okay, so where are we? Well, one of the most important things to know after you click on the slide master, if you're going to sit down and set defaults in slide master, is the first thing you should do is go here and scroll up to the top. See that? That's like the master slide of the slide master. Let me click on this master slide. Now, if I programmed Microsoft, I would have made it every time anybody goes to the master, I would have made it default to this top slide. Because as you can see, this is like basically a template. So this is a template of all the different slide format. Remember that? Remember when we did insert new slide? We could have chosen this one. We could have chosen this one. We could have chosen this one, right? So that's what's happening, okay? So I fight with PowerPoint like all day. Why? Because I have customers and they bring me these PowerPoints that's based on some sort of default. Like one of the things I really hate is, so this is the main one at the top, is see how this font, if you click on here, see how the slide master is here and see it says shape format here. I'm clicking on this. If you go to home and I click on it, I can see the information about the text. And this says it's 28, Calibri 28. Which is good. If you talk to anybody who's a professional slide presentation person, they'll tell you want at least 24-point font on your slide. Which brings me to what is going on here. This is like 18-point font is the default. So one of the things I usually do in the master, no matter what I'm doing, is I highlight all of these. And you can see what this is. This is when you automatically create this. And I go up here and I change this to 24-point because I'm like, oh my God, nobody's going to see anything. Okay. So now if I choose this particular format to make a new slide in this, it's going to honor what I just did, make this 24-point. But of course, this is just one version of the slide, like one layout. Remember that one I was complaining about down here? Like, it wasn't really this one, but this one here. Like, I didn't like I wish this was in the middle, right? So when I click on it, now I'm on the home here, so I can use this menu. Here, this will make it be in the middle, and this will make it be in the middle. Right? See how it says click to edit master text styles. Well, you're supposed to know what that means is you can edit this and then it'll be default, right? The other thing I don't like about this is I wish it was centered vertically, and I always lose where that is. I think that I never can find it. I think, is it on the view or review? Home, like where, like a range? I can never, oh no, here it is. Here it is. Here it is. Middle. That's where it is. Yeah, I always lose that one. So here we're going to do the same thing over here. We're going to do, actually, you can do Control Y. It'll repeat what you just did. I'm going to do that. Control Y. Yeah, look at that. All right. So just a little key commands there. Okay, so that's just an example of editing the actual format, but you can do more than that. And remember how I went on and on about these families of fonts? Well, you can get out the old Arial family. So like I'm talking up the Arial family, but we can use a different family of fonts. So let's go so let's start by editing this let's see, where am I going? Whoops. I'm going home. Let's start by changing this. And so I'm going to click on this. Now these fonts, you might not have some of these. These are the ones I have. But when we hit the Arial family, we have Arial, Arial Black, Arial Narrow, Arial Nova Condensed, Arial Nova Condensed Light. I don't really use these. Arial Nova Light, Arial Rounded, MT Bold. I use this more for like posters and stuff. And then we're done. So let's do the Times New Roman family. We can go, and you can study different families, but let's just do that. Let's see here. Oh, they don't have much in here for that. We can do a different family. I think, do we have Garamond or Calibri? You can tell I like, there's one of them that I like. Well, here we have Calibri and Calibri Light. Okay. So we could do, or I think that's what they already have. Actually, I think Tahoma was the last one they had. Well, let's just do the Arial fonts because I'm really into those. So I usually put Arial Black as the title here. That might be a little loud for you. If you don't like that, you could try Arial Rounded Bold. That's another one. Or Arial Nova is another one I like. Okay. And then down here, I usually use just plain old Arial. But one thing I'll tell you is when I'm making data visualizations, I try to use as much as possible Arial Narrow. Okay. See how narrow it is? Now, if you're doing a slide presentation, you do not want Arial Narrow. Nobody will be able to read it. But Arial Narrow is really good on shapes. Now, you're probably thinking, okay, like you see, it doesn't really look good on the slide. So for slides for these, I probably just put regular Arial. But then, and there's, I'm playing with the font. You can do other things. Like you can put in, like, I'm going to just pretend this is a logo. I'm going to put this here. So, oh, see, I put it on the third slide. That wasn't a good idea. I should put it up here, right? Whoops. Let me do insert. I'm just going to pretend here, shapes. See how that jumps around where that is? So I'm just going to put a circle here and pretend that's a logo. See how it cascades on all of them? And so I could like make this pretty. I could make this a different color. I guess, where would I go? Home. And now it's red. I could do all that. And then I'd be done with this master and I could change it. And in fact, actually, I'm going to send this to the back here. Send to back here, just so you can see what happens if you put a graphic on the front one. But you saw what happened when I put it on the third one. That's why you have to go to the first one, like right away, as soon as you enter the master. Okay. This is a great example. Like I'm done editing the master. I'm all done with it. Now what do? I always just sit here and I'm like, how do I get out of here? Well, you go over here, the slide master thing, that's not normally there. That's only there if you have the slide master going on. You can go over here, close master view, and look. And so now, see, it affected these slides. See? But you'll probably see, wait a second, Monica, this is still Calibri. Like here, this is Arial Narrow. Here we have Arial Nova, remember? But this is all Calibri. Well, that's because what I just described to you really just has to do with making these default formats. So if I have a new slide like this one here, like a title slide, see, it's got my, it's got all of that there. So we normally don't need to do that. So usually how I use the master when I'm going to prepare a deck for like data visualizations, which is a weird thought, like a deck for data visualizations, I usually don't show people this deck. This is a deck where I'm making a bunch of diagrams and I'm just going to save them as JPEGs and put them in some Word document or put them in some manual or a patent or something that I'm making. So it doesn't even really look like a slide deck. It just looks like a series of diagrams that is like out of context, like it's meant to be in a report or something. So if I'm sitting down and I'm setting up defaults to make one of those, and so you're probably thinking, well, do you do that a lot? And the answer is, if I have a slide deck I just made, like I'm helping this person with their app right now. This person developed a healthcare app. And I've literally made like 100 diagrams and trying to help them with their app. And they're diagrams of all kinds of things, like diagrams about how people are going to pay for the app and where the money, how the money transaction goes and how insurance reimbursement is going to go, like all these different things. I have like 100 diagrams. So if you are my new customer and you're like, Monica, you need to help me with my app, you need to make 100 diagrams again. What I'll do is I'll copy that old file and erase everything in it and just start over, because it's got really good defaults for that, as you can probably imagine, right? But I'm teaching you how to start from scratch if you don't have good defaults. So I've just gone over the first way, which is the master way. Okay. Now I'm going to show you how to set other defaults using the design menu way. And I'm making all this up because like I don't think there's even official names for these different ways. Okay. So we're back at home right now. This is where we started before we went to the master. And just remember how we went to the masters. We went to view and then we went down. Okay, we're back home. Now we're going to do it the design way. And that's a little easier to remember because you start by going to design. Okay, so we go to design. At this point, it gets really weird. Okay, so this is what you do. You see this ribbon. It says themes over here. Don't ask me what that is. And it says variants over here, like COVID-19 variants. Like it's weird. This says variants, this says themes. If you click on this, you get these 4 choices: colors, fonts, effects, and background styles. And I'm just going to confess, I don't even know what effects and I don't know about the last 2 on there. I'm going to show you the first 2. We're going to start with colors. Okay, so first, I just want to point out that there's like these color palettes you can choose. And these are the default Office ones. You saw how I went down that and that dot changed in color, because like if we choose this one, we'll get that. But as you might notice, if we choose this one, we get no green. And if we choose this one, we get no red. Right, like these are bad color palettes. So you can see I made these custom ones. So I'm going to show you how I did that. I went to customize colors. Okay. This is really hard. Okay. So I'm going to back up here. So how did I get here? I went to design. I saw this themes. I saw this variants. I clicked on this. I saw this colors. And then remember these custom colors? See this rainbowy thing that says March 2023 here? And see this sort of rainbowy thing that says low chroma? Those are custom color palettes. So how those got there is I went over here and went to customize colors. I named it like March 2023. Guess when I made it? Probably can't, right? No, I'm just kidding. So obviously, like naming them after the month kind of helped me because I didn't know why I was making them. I was making them so I could have something for my data visualization. But it kind of like, I kind of have been working with that March 2023 palette for a while, and I kind of don't like some things about it. Like I'll show you what I don't like about it. So see how this diagram is here. Okay. See this color here that says that's this color. It's obviously dark 2. So if I change dark 2 to like you can go down to more colors here. So let's say I change dark 2 to like this green color, okay? It's going to be really ugly. So that's harsh, okay? So how this is like really hard to manipulate. I really encourage you to take my online course, PowerPoint for Visualizations, where we walk through how you figure out how to manipulate this to actually get a really nice palette when you're done, okay? But I won't do that now, but you can see the basics behind it. What I am going to do is show you the palette that I chose, right? Which is actually, you can just see the palette. I think, let's see your insert. Actually, if I go, let me just click on one of these here and see how it says shape format. So I'll go over here and then shape fill. I'm going to say, oh, what if I want to put a color in here? Oh, it's not using this color palette. So I'm going to choose this color palette. So I'm going to go to design. Here, I'm going to choose this colors and I'm going to choose this color palette. See, it changed it now. Like this was in black and white before on purpose, right? Because I couldn't have to deal with these ugly colors. Okay, now I'm going to go back. So now that I've chosen it, I'm going to go back home here. And oh, here, now if I'm on home, this is why this is so confusing. This is where I could change the color. Now see, do you recognize these? These were those rainbow colors you were seeing, okay? Now, I just set those rainbow colors. I set them using that sample. Remember when I changed that thing to green? But it gave me these gradations. So these are the colors I set, and this is the gradation, okay? Now, my goal was to set colors that were bright, but you could still see if I typed on it. So when I choose this blue, this is a little dark. So this is my criticism after using my palette for a while. And so I can probably go and just make a copy of March 2023 and like adjust it or something. But upon seeing that, I could kind of like, this is the one I chose. I could just choose like this gradation because it gives me this gradation. I could just choose this one instead. And I really think I made the purple too dark. Like this purple is just way too dark, right? But when I go to like this purple, I don't know. Maybe I should have made this purple, like something like this purple in there. But if you're like, well, how do you know what colors to put? I cover that in the PowerPoint for Visualizations course. So you can sort of think of how to use color for that. So just to recap what I just did is we went here and we saw that the color palette before this, it looked really bad. It was one of those default palettes that didn't have many choices in it. So we went to design by themes and then variants, and then we went here and we chose colors. I did customize colors and made that March 2023 palette. And then I chose that palette just a minute ago. And you see how, like, if I go on the screen, see how you can't even tell hospital admission and primary healthcare. They're almost the same color. So that's why I like my own palette. Okay. So then the last thing I'm going to show you is also on the design menu. And it's the fonts thing here. So your probably first question is like, how is that different from the master? And the answer is, I don't even know. Like, I've been working on this so long, I can't figure out, right? Like, as you can see, I changed the master and it didn't change any of this font that's already on here. This font is like Calibri, right? And I don't like Calibri, so I wish it had changed. But let's go to still look at and see what we can do. So we'll go over here, go to fonts. Now, these, see where it says Office? It's kind of like with the palettes. These are the ones that Office has programmed for us. So I want things to be in Arial. So I could just choose Arial, Arial, Arial. And you're probably like, Arial, Arial, Arial. What's that? Well, they're programming families for you. I should have probably looked at this. Here's a Century Gothic family. I love this. sans serif, right? Like you can predict me. Okay. I love Century Gothic. So let's change this to Century Gothic. I love this. But you can see what okay. I used to be a fashion designer. And when I was a fashion designer, that's when I use this because it's nice, beautiful, like fat. Um, it's just so nice and wide and circular. But when I got into data science and I was like making things for that, I was like, okay, this is too much real estate. This is terrible. Look at all this wasted space this is in there. So I go back and I say Arial all the way. I just changed. So we can choose their defaults here, and that's pretty good. That's pretty good. The problem is I like Arial narrow because look at that. Right? That's too big. So let's go back and remember it's changing it on every slide. It's changing it over here too. So let's go back and do let's do something custom. So here you can see me, I'm fighting with all the customs. For some reason, I'm only allowed to set 2 things when I customize it. See, when you go to customize fonts, this is what you're stuck with. Okay. And I kind of didn't know what to choose here. So you can experiment with it. But I found that when I chose, like my concern was this Arial narrow. So this custom 2 that I picked, that kind of worked for me because now everything's an Arial narrow and it kind of fits. All right. So I'm looking to see if there's any questions in the chats. So to recap, this is what I was just doing the fonts one. So in fonts, which is on the design thing, you can make your own customized font by going to that dialog box and doing that, or you can choose choose one of their office fonts, which they've already programmed the families. All right. For colors, you're going to want to, program a custom palette. It's not straightforward. I mean, you could probably figure it out on your own, but if you need help, I would suggest you take my course because that's literally why I made it, because it's so hard to explain. Like I worked really hard on those videos so you can understand exactly what to do. All right. And then the other thing that I showed you was just how to get to the master and manipulate it. And just to remind you, how you get to the master is you go to view and then you go to slide master, right? So it's like, who's going to remember that? Crazy. This is what I had prepared for you today. And again, you can ask me questions in the chat if you want. But the thing I want to make sure you know is that the free online workshop is next week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. It's this, I introduced it at the beginning, but I'll repeat it now in case you weren't here. It's on application basics. So it explains, like, how I was just fighting with PowerPoint a minute ago? Well, how did PowerPoint even get there? How did it get designed? And how did all of these menus get put in? How did all that happen? Well, I won't give you the backstory in PowerPoint, but I'll give you the backstory on how that all happens and how we as data scientists are the beneficiary of that. So we need to really basically understand those processes a little better. If you do, you can manipulate your software better, like I just did, right? And so this is a 6-hour workshop. It's online. It's on Zoom. You interact with each other. It's going to be networking and also doing like a group challenges, because at the beginning of each session, I deliver some information and then there's a group challenge and you guys have to do it. And then there's a private wrap-up session with me. And you get online access to the course materials. The course for Application Basics Online is on the same platform as the PowerPoint for Visualizations course. But it's the Application Basics course you get for free if you take the workshop. And so we're going off of that. In case you want to sign up and you want to come, please notice that in November, we also are having the workshop, but it's on Saturday and Sunday instead of Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So that might be a better time for you. Well, I don't see any questions in the chat, so I'll just have to say thank you for showing up today for my presentation on defaults in PowerPoint. Hopefully you learned something that will make your life better, more efficient, and more peaceful, so you don't have to fight with PowerPoint the way we normally have to do. So thanks for showing up, and I hope you learned something from our little lecture today. And I also hope you have a good week. Thank you for watching this video, which is part of the Public Health to Data Science Rebrand program. If you are interested in joining the program, please sign up for a 30-minute Zoom interview using the link in the description.